President Trump is taking a victory lap here, and he should, because this is exactly what they wanted. Notable, Justice Sotomayor says that the court essentially was asked to address this question, in part because the government didn't think that they could get what they wanted in terms of birthright citizenship. You know, why didn't they ask for complete stays of the injunctions, she asks? The answer is obvious. To get such relief, the government would have to show that the order is likely constitutional, an impossible task in light of the Constitution's text, history, this court's precedent, federal law, and executive branch practice. If that's what they were trying to do, then they were right. They won.
Yes, this was a big, big Trump victory in the courts. And what basically it boils down to is the court said that the lower federal district courts that were hearing all these lawsuits about getting injunctions against Trump policies that were potentially unconstitutional or illegal, that the courts could no longer issue these stop work on this whole thing until the lower courts decided if the Trump policy was good or bad. So the Supreme Court has now taken it away from the lower courts, and they've said to the courts, the only people you can issue an injunction for are the very plaintiffs that are in front of you on their particular issue. You cannot go around anymore and issue nationwide injunctions just because someone is complaining about a Trump policy. Now, the Supreme Court isn't ruling on whether or not Trump policies are legal or illegal. They're just saying, let's take it out of the hands of the court. But I have to tell you, the most interesting thing about this entire situation was Justice Sotomayor, who you just read a little piece, she actually read her dissent from the bench out loud for 20 minutes. She was so angry about this majority decision. Yeah. That does not happen.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously very controversial, partly because, in addition to all of this, it just opens the door to Donald Trump just going crazy in terms of executive orders. He can issue an executive order today and will likely. He said so today. And he knows that the lower courts cannot carte blanche stop him, which hugely increases the power of the executive.
Yeah, look, this is a great week for him, not just because of this ruling, but earlier in the week, the Supreme Court handed him the ruling on being able to deport illegal immigrants to third-party countries, essentially. So he's on a little bit of a winning streak in the courts right now. And you know what a lot of Republicans are saying is, nope, we're not tired of winning yet. This happened. The stock market's at a record high. He brokered the ceasefire in the 12-day war. Peace broke out between Rwanda and the Congo. I mean, gas prices are at a 4-year low for the summer. I mean, win after win after win. And this particular one is the most important because these individual judges had been, I think, unfairly stopping the president from governing. He won the election. They didn't. We don't have 600 presidents. We have one president. And now he's going to be able to actually govern. And so you could make an argument that this week or the last 2 weeks, the best week or 2 weeks of his entire presidency.
Doesn't mean it's good for America, but a couple of things. One, this is why in Trump 1.0, getting those justices on the Supreme Court were so important. Your former boss preventing Barack Obama, some might say unfairly, from getting his nomination in contradiction to what he did when Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Yeah. But elections have consequences. Today was a victory for Donald Trump. But here's the thing. If we follow the Constitution, which I don't know if this man will, in 3 years, he won't be the president anymore. 3.5 years, he won't be the president anymore. And that same ruling could apply to a Democratic judge. And so when DACA comes out or other student loan debt comes out and your side is going to try and put an injunction, I don't want to hear, oh my God, the executive is overreaching.
You're going to hear it.
Yeah, but that's the hypocrisy of it.
Of course it is. And this is the one thing I would mention here is, like, I think there's a little bit of column A and column B here. First off, he hasn't been winning from the communication standpoint. Not if you watch a Pete Hegseth press conference. That is not winning when you blame anybody that's in the media that's been covering it for 30 years, like Jennifer Griffin. But the secondary part of this is where I think that there is like a little bit of truth in this is that the judicial branch is supposed to weigh in on the law. right? Am I right or wrong?
Right.
Okay, so what they did with respect to this was take the power out of the district court judges, and now a plaintiff has to bring something in front of the judge.
Right.
The problem is, and we all know this, courts move at a glacial pace, and now this is going to take forever to get adjudicated and get eventually to the Supreme Court. Am I right or wrong? Did
No,
my
you're
criminal
100%
justice minor
right.
erupt?
No, you're
Okay.
right on
Just want to make sure I'm
because
working.
you know what? The Supreme Court did something else here, which is,
Yeah.
I'm going to call it tacky, for lack of a better word. The Supreme Court said, if you want to pursue these nationwide injunctions, then now you have to bring a class action lawsuit. So you have to show
Right.
this huge party of aggrieved people in order for these district courts to get these lawsuits. And that's the
hard.
most
That's
cumbersome type
As
of
a
lawsuit.
lawyer,
Although they
Yes.
that's gotta
are
be hard.
already
Yes,
trying to do that,
it's
like
gonna-
right now.
And I think
Yeah.
even the ACLU today filed a
Yes.
class action lawsuit
So-
on the on the citizenship
You mentioned
issue.
the Justice Sotomayor reading her dissent from the bench. In the actual opinion, the justices were kind of going at it. Amy Coney Barrett wrote the majority opinion, and she went after her colleague, Ketanji Brown Jackson's dissent and criticized it explicitly. That has caused some people, like Charlie Kirk, to say Ketanji Brown Jackson is a diversity hire. She's only there because she's a black woman.
Of course he said that. Like,
So-
it's Charlie Kirk. That's not breaking news. Ketanji Brown Jackson is more than qualified to be on the bench. And I would argue, I don't like all the justices and their judicial rulings, and they all have very qualified judicial records. So the fact that she is a black woman, the first black woman, there have been many, many before her, and there will be many, many after. Will they all get the chance to be on the bench? No. But this is what they do. Like, they should have just taken the win, but they cannot get out of using race and gender to try and bait people against each other. I'll just also say, the birthright citizenship question is still one that is very much on the table. A lot of people, after this court ruling came down, are scared, but that wasn't actually decided today, and that will come in the fall. And I still think that the Supreme Court will not rule that birthright citizenship should be overturned.
Yeah, I think that's important.
yeah.
I think that's important to mention to people because I think people are trying to figure this out. We're not all legal beagles like you, unfortunately. So they're trying to figure out how does this actually impact the class action thing. Like you mentioned, that's incredibly burdensome for people to try to get on board with
And
that. How
it's
many times
gonna
have you gotten
bog down
class
the
action
court
lawsuits?
system.
It's going to
Again.
bog down the
Yep.
court system.
Here,
This is just
back
going
to
to
the
delay
beginning.
certain things.
It's interesting. In 2022, Justice Kagan actually gave an interview and said out loud what a lot of conservatives have been saying this year, which is that how can it be that an individual district court judge can issue a nationwide injunction and effectively grind a presidency to a halt and take years and years and years for it to go through the process. Now, she obviously voted the other way this time around. I wonder what caused her to change her opinion.
Can I just ask a question, though? I mean, it's a question to you and to you, because a lot of people are trying to figure out how is it possible that the court could basically say that, oh, it's fine for the time being for there to be some people who are citizens today but not tomorrow, some people who are citizens in this state but not in that state. How is this all supposed to work on this particular question? It seems unworkable.
Yeah. It's so bizarre because the 14th Amendment says, and it's hard to play around with the interpretation of that amendment, that if you're born on U.S. soil and you're subject to the United States jurisdiction, then you are bestowed citizenship. The Trump executive order, which came out right away when he entered office in January, was saying that if your mother is here illegally and your father is also not a citizen, then you should not, these children should not get this automatic right to citizenship. And I went back and looked at the 14th Amendment again today because I haven't looked at it for a long time. Once we leave law school, we kind of ignore the amendments a little bit until our clients get arrested and we have to look at them again. But it says, there's one interesting part if you have to be subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, these children. So I'm thinking, well, is an argument going to be down the road? I don't want to give the Trump administration their legal arguments, but maybe they're minor children and the parents would be subject to jurisdiction, but the children wouldn't be.
I mean, the subject to the jurisdiction thereof is the only part of it that they think is what gives them an in here. But that is also something that, frankly, has actually been discussed in the court.
This episode of Can We Please Talk is presented by our friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Delicious tasting coffee since 2009. They've been our proud sponsor. You see the promo code there Look at this. They sent me this beautiful kit right here. Listen to that. Listen to that seal coming out, right? What's in it? Environmentally safe, compostable K-Pods. I love the dark Mexican blend. You can go to their website right now, take the quiz. That quiz is going to put you with a flavor profile. Listen to that sound of the coffee that you're going to be matched up with. Go to freshroastedcoffee.com. Click the link right now in our show notes. You can see it right there. Click that link. It's going to take you to the site. When you get to checkout, use our promo code, Can We Please Get 20? All one word, Can We Please Get 20, 20. You're going to get 20% off your first purchase. Head to freshroastedcoffee.com, our official sponsor of the Can We Please Talk podcast.